Okay, okay. Uh, कल हम लोगों ने बात करी थी. We are talking about yesterday the energy security, and the second part of this class is food security. We all know that how food is very important for ourselves, because earlier every scholar or every anthropologist or that every person emphasizes to need of a people, a man, for his very survival is three are basic need. As far I say that there is a three things: food, shelter, and the clothes. This is the basis of our three needs are the basis of our day-to-day modern society. So every country or entity try to ensure to uninterrupted supply of food to everyone. In spite of their effort, there are worldwide data that majority of people are undernourished or underprivileged as far as food availability is concerned. There are so many reasons. Sometimes there is a scarcity of sufficient amount of agriculture produce. So in these areas to feed the people, their entities try to procure the food grains or the food stuff from the another region or the country or the areas. Generally, if we saw the various books or the various paper, we saw that the food security is the measure of availability of food and individuals' ability to access it. As far as United Nations Committee on World Food Security is concerned, it defined that food security is mean that all people at all times have physical, social, economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meet their dietary need for an active and healthy life. Means the food security means whatever they procure, this should be nutritious. This should be balanced in terms of a dietary composition is concerned, that nourish and provide sufficient energy to work. It is not necessary to provide any sort of things that feed their stomach, but it should be considered the stuff that you are provide or you are taking that much in rich in dietary and nutrition value. So we know that every country or the every region, as far as diet is concerned, their staple food are very different. But the majority of the people receives or take as a rice for their staple food. So it is very important that every person would be able to access the sufficient amount of food. If we saw that there are some countries, particularly in the Africa or some underdeveloped country in in Asia having a minimum supply of food. So they are starving to, they are unable to get a square meal per day. Some country that is war ravaged means particularly in the recent case of Afghanistan, a report has been published that more than 39% or over the 40% people means the population of total population, the 42% are still deprived by their 2 squares of meal a day. It is a very, very serious concern for as far as human society is concerned, because they are they haven't any sufficient amount to import or to procure food grains in order to supply their citizens. So the United Nations Organization, they calls for the nations to provide some food stuff to the Afghanistan people so that they could feed sufficient amount of food. Here is some data that in 1996, the World Summit for Food Security, they declared that food should not be used as an instrument for political and economic pressure. It is well evident that sometimes the big entities, they have an opportunity to play a food as an instrument of political and economic pressure, to mount pressure. They interrupt the supply of food grains to the other country so that they have immense pressure to succumb their will. But the World Summit that is held in 1996 strongly criticized that the nation should not treat as the food supply as an economic and political pressure. In various areas, the people still facing a deep hunger. They are dying with the starvation, the famine, etc. Because there are no rains or their land are not as well to produce sufficient amount of food. So these areas or these countries rather dependent on the food supply on the other nations. Nowadays, we are witnessing our neighboring countries, that is Sri Lanka, where the food stuff is not as much available to the population. If there is a food stuff is available, but due to economic crisis, deep economic crisis, their rates are soaring high and high day by day. So our country, India, supplies immediate some food grains with the immediate effect to serve as a you may say that as a gift to Sri Lankan people from the people of India. Here is some example of food insecurity. The Number one of the food insecurity is the famine. You know that before agriculture revolution in our country, there are so many famines in various time periods occurs. The famous famines that occur in India before independence, that was the Bengal famine. In such famine, millions of people died with the hunger because at that time there is a no technical know-how for agriculture farming to produce more food grains in a that portion of land. Some people say that there is a severe drought, means there is a no rains for long years. That ultimately consequentially it the Bengal region faces a severe famine. Though there is a variety of reasons which lie down for the increase in hunger over the past few years. If we take the recent amount, the slowdowns and downturns since the 2008-9 financial crisis also responsible for that. Some structural imbalances and a lack of inclusive policies have combined with extreme weather events, altered environmental conditions, and the spread of pests and diseases to trigger a stubborn cycle of poverty and hunger. Well, of course, sometimes there is a lack of inclusive policies. It is true that led to the reduction of food grains productions. We all know that our neighboring countries, Sri Lanka, during the tenure of Rajpaksa regime, they make a policy that no farmer would use chemical fertilizers in their farm land. They made a law that every farmer would use organic manure or the organic farming, uh, fertilizers to produce their agriculture. Agriculture, but for using the organic manure, though the quality of food grains may improve, but as far as amount is concerned of the production is less. So they face acute shortage of food grains. We have all learned through the Google or on the net. See how there is a severe scarcity of food grains in our neighbor country. Another one is sometimes there is a natural disasters also play an important part for food insecurity. Our country, India, particularly its northern region, that is UP, Bihar, etc., and the Doaba region, means Gangetic plains, usually saw a flood every year. In that time, the our important crop submerged in waters and gradually it destroyed. So it is a main reason. And sometimes during uh, the month of winter, at the end of winter, in some areas, there is a hailstorm. which also causes a severe, uh, you can say that severe uh, negative impact of our standing crop, particularly the wheat crop. That is the staple food of the majority of our population. So this generate or raise a food insecurity, and sometimes the country having indulged with the war with the other country, also responsible for agriculture part, where the heavy shelling and the bombing destroy a large area of agricultural land, which means food insecurity in the long term. Because the main objective of the war or attack is to destroy its adversaries' resources completely. The resources means infrastructural facilities, the farmland, civil areas where the large population reside also, and ultimately leaves behind the scars of disturbed land which are able to produce our agricultural produce. So these are the reasons which create uh, food insecurity. Now, here I have data as far as food security by country is concerned. So first of all, I would take the Afghanistan case. Here is about 35.5% household. Means if we take a 4 to 5% in a household in a one unit, so you can just imagine how many percentage of its population is food insecure nowadays. And the prevalence of underweight stunting and wasting in children under 5 years of age is also very high. Means in Afghanistan, the children are undernourished, underprivileged. They are, you can say that they are not able to get a sufficient amount of nutritious food for their physical development. The Western countries suspended humanitarian aid to Afghanistan following the Taliban takeover. It is a main reason. You know that Afghanistan is reeling under civil war for last since 1990s onward. So the all countries in the world send a huge amount of food stuff, medical medicines, etc., on the humanitarian ground. But recently, the Talibanis again take over the rule of Afghanistan there. So all countries whom are sending a lot amount of help to Afghanistan on humanitarian ground, they suspended right now because they oppose the Talibanis accession, or you say that the Talibanis rule on Afghanistan. So ultimately, the people of Afghanistan suffer. In October 2021, more than half of Afghanistan, 39 million people face an acute food shortage. This is the data of recently You said that 5 to 6 months earlier, when the Talibanis take over the control of Afghanistan. On 11th November 2021, the Human Rights Watch reported that Afghanistan is facing widespread famine due to the collapsed economy and broken banking system. The broken banking system means they have money deposited there in their banks, central bank of Afghanistan, but a collateral large amount has been invested in the banks controlled by the Americans. So they put withhold their accounts. So there is scarcity of funds to purchase the food or the other item that is necessary for their very survival. Another case is China. You know that the Chinese people eats everything except human being. This is jokes apart, but Chinese people also facing lot of food shortage, and during pandemic COVID-19, their relation with other countries become strained. One example is quite enough to explain the majority of food grains China imports from the Australia. On assertive behavior of the China in the Indo-Pacific, Australia denied to export food, particularly the wheat, to the China. So it is news in the various newspaper, magazines, and on the net that China leased a very superior quality of land in the Pakistan, particularly in the Sindh province, and they make an agreement with the Islamabad that we will provide you all resources for agriculture, but ultimately the all produce agriculture produced would be mine. It means the labor force would be Pakistani, but final outcome means the final produce of that agriculture land is owned by the Chinese people, yeah, Chinese government. It means this shows that there is a acute shortage of food grains, and the Xi Jinping started a means you say that the launch Operation Empty Plates, because she stressed that there should be a sense of crisis about food security. In 2020, China witnessed a rise in food prices because we already says that there is a due to severe cases of COVID-19 that wiped out the country's crops, which made food security a priority for Xi Jinping. Here, the main exporter, as far as food stuff, particularly the wheat is concerned, that is the Mexico, Latin American country, US, Australia, Canada. But the strained relation among these countries with the China, they are not able, not in a position to supply sufficient amount of food grains to China. That is a main concern. and led to the food insecurity in China. So, gentlemen, this is a few examples of food security and food insecurity. One more example I would like to quote as far as food insecurity is concerned in our country. During mid 60s, there is a steep rise of population, but in a ratio in comparison to the availability of food products, particularly the wheat, there is an acute shortage in a country. There is a large gap between the availability of food grains and the number of persons in our country present that time. So our government try to import wheat from other countries. You know that I don't know that you will be there, but if you ask from your elderly people in your family, they will certainly detail you what was the time at after the China war. See, this is I am talking about 1962, 63 onward, and last up to 67, 68. There is a great shortage of wheat, and government introduced a rationing, that is the public distribution system. Rationing system. It means the food prices, particularly the wheat prices, is very, very outreach of every person's pocket. So the government started the rationing system. That means every household will provide a certain amount of wheat, rice, etc. For example, if a 5 persons present, no, it is out of out of the way that I don't call the 5 persons only. In that time, the families are very, very big, 7 to 8 people, and the only one person was a hard earner of their as far as money is concerned. So the head of the family have a great difficulty to feed remaining persons in India. So government allocate that every family would get 8 kg or 10 kg of wheat per person in the family. Now you can calculate. If suppose there is a 7 to 8 persons in a family, it means the person show the ration card at the public distribution shops, and they enter their register and issue a 70 to 80 kg of wheat. But friend, the quality of wheat was very, very low. It was at that time the said that it was the wheat was PL 170. Means this is the name of you know that the name of the agriculture produce. Means yes, for example, uh, in every agricultural universities, whenever they invent or some agriculture produce like the wheat, barley, sunflower, lentils, some lentils, they fix a name. Okay, for example, uh, for paddy, so they call kala namak. Sometimes they said that the sona. Okay, For wheat is concerned, some areas say the Prabhati, or the K68, RR21. It means these are the varieties. So PL170 was a variety of wheat that India import from the Mexico, America, and the Mexico. And a story was floating among the people that that wheat is not suitable to consume by the human being. And this quality of food means the wheat is the Mexican people and the American people use as a fodder of their cattle. So they supplied their extra or waste wheat to our country. That is a very, very humiliating period that was. And you know that I was at that time was say 7 to 8 years old at that very much time. So I still remember that very red colored wheat was being supplied in the public distribution shops, and we are when we goes to purchase that wheat, it is very, very rough. But anyhow, because there is no alternative, so we are compelled to use that heat. And in the meantime, a green revolution was occurred in the mid 60s. Green revolution means the new technology, new technique being introduced among the farmers. I still try to remember the person who was responsible the green revolution in our country. I would like to welcome any one of you people that please try to recall.
Sir, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan.
No, MS Swaminathan, and another one is Borlaug, Norman Borlaug.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps. Hello, Avnish.
Yes, sir.
Swaminathan and Norman Borlaug.
Sir, M.S. Swaminathan is known as is called as father of green revolution in India.
Yes, yes.
जो कि बोरलॉग जो है वो ओवरऑल ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन के फादर कहलाते हैं.
Okay. Yeah. Fact. And in the memory of Norman Borlaug, award has been instituted in India, and MS Swaminathan. Yes. So I very much agree with Avnish points. So with the effort of MS Swaminathan, the green revolution started. In this revolution means the green revolution means the new technique being introduced.
सर ये 40 मिनट हो जाएंगे तो ये ओवर हो जाएगी रिकॉर्डिंग. So can we please rejoin it?
No. You can rejoin. I will
yes,
take 40 minutes, or you say that exact 6 o'clock.
नहीं सर, बस जैसे ये खत्म होती हम लोग फिर से रिज्वाइन कर लेते हैं.
नहीं, रिज्वाइन तो हम नहीं कर पाएंगे, कारण थोड़ा सा टाइम अगर कंटिन्यू हो जाता है,
ठीक
है ना, तो इसको एक काम कर लेना, या तो तुम लोग
सर लास्ट 1 मिनट बचे हुए हैं सर, तो हमें रिज्वाइन करना ही पड़ेगा अगर हम इसको 6 बजे तक चाहते हैं करना क्लास.
ओके, करो.
यस सर, सेम लिंक से सर रिज्वाइन कर लीजिए.
ओके. थोड़ा सा टाइम लगा था हमको रिज्वाइन करने में, तुम लोग उधर से कर देना.
सर आप सेम लिंक पे क्लिक करेंगे, आप ज्वाइन हो जाएगा.
ओके. सर